Now, I just want to make sure it goes. Hello, hello, hello. Just want to make sure the chat can hear us.
Hello.
Hello.
Good
All right,
morning.
I think
How
we
are you?
have audio. I think we have it. Okay,
Good.
okay. Did I mute this? Yes. Hi everyone, Tony from Hack the Movies here, and today we're gonna ask the big questions. What's up with CGI? And today we have Yoshi Vu. Did I pronounce that right?
That is correct.
Good, good. Yoshi, I have some questions for you. Okay,
Oh, we're getting right into it, huh?
we're getting
Okay.
right into it.
Sounds
Uh,
good.
who are you? Can you properly introduce yourself?
So, my name is Yoshi. Hello, everyone. Was a visual effects generalist, meaning a little bit of everything, jack of all trades, if you will. I worked on various TV shows, films, games, you name it. Currently, I work as a designer on the show Invincible, which I will not talk about because it's not out yet. So,
That's
uh,
fine.
yeah, that's who I am.
Yes, and you've worked, like you said, you've worked on some pretty big things. You've worked on some Star Wars projects, right?
That's correct. I worked on Rise of Skywalker, Mandalorian season one, and Obi-Wan season one.
Right, and I love all three of those things. Do not look at the chat. If they say I don't, they're definitely lying. They're definitely lying. I love all three of those things. I love them so much.
Wait, there's a chat?
Uh,
How do I see that?
if you go to the YouTube link, the
I'm
chat's
kidding.
there.
I'm
And
kidding.
I'm sure the chat's going to be like, "Oh, Tony talks about how he likes all three of those things all the time," right? Anyway, actually I do want to mention Star Wars later cuz we're talking about CGI. That's the topic today. And I do think all the gripes I have with Star Wars, their effects is not one of them. The effects are like pretty top notch across that whole franchise recently. Um, but yeah, so we got that out of the way. Um, before we go any further, the name of the game tonight, Yoshi, is super chats. And as soon as I said that, we got a super chat. Send in your super chats. I'm gonna ask my questions for Yoshi. If you have a question for him or a question for me, or you just want us to say something within reason, please leave a super chat. We will read that at the end of the show. And for our $10 patrons, I have them waiting in the wings here. We're going to have them on. We're going to have them maybe ask a question or just give an example of good CGI they've seen recently. Now, I wanted to ask, how long have you been in this industry?
Since around 2010-ish, I think. So give or take 12, 13 years.
Okay.
Yeah, my first
How
movie was Journey to the Mysterious Island with The Rock.
uh,
That
superior
and
to the
Blue.
first one. Superior to the first one. Everyone loves Journey too. um, actually, have I seen that? Aren't there like weird elephants in that movie or
The
something?
little tiny elephants.
Yeah, there's tiny elephants in that movie. Yeah. So how has the industry kind of like evolved since you entered it? Like, is there anything different today than it was then?
Um, Computers are faster, tools are better.
Yep.
On the industry side, personally, I know that thankfully our overtime issues are slowly getting resolved. I
Yeah.
haven't had to work. I have had to work less overtime each year I've been in this field, which is a good thing. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that artists that I started with around my age were moving up on the food chain and not trying to pass down the issues that we went through. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and
No.
also
Yeah.
there's also the fact of directors and studios being more and more familiar with how visual effects works, so things are a little more efficient.
Okay. Yes, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that specific point. So I'm sure you know, for some reason, there's a lot of negativity around CGI specifically, especially in like film criticism circles and whatnot. I did a video a long time ago because I'm not one of those people. Like, I'll call out like a bad effect. It doesn't matter what the effect is. And I did a video a while ago, and people were like mad that I did it. There's a movie called Prophecy, not the Angel movie with Christopher Walken. This is a movie about a mutant bear. Um, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's actually pretty good. But the movie is very suspenseful. It's got really good characters. It really draws you in. And then the man in the bear suit shows up, and it's one of the worst practical effects I've ever seen. And it kills the movie. And I'm like, all these people who complain about CGI, I'm like, I don't think they realize, like, there are plenty of practical effects that are also pretty terrible and can ruin movies. Like, it really depends on the effect. It doesn't matter how the effect is made. But I think where do you think a lot of the negativity originated or stems from? Do you have any idea? Because I have a theory.
From bad CG. I mean, let's be honest. There's good
Yeah.
CG and there's bad CG, just like any other form of art. And
Yeah.
I think the problem is with CG is the better it is, the less people know about it. Because I will say some of my best work,
Mhm.
nobody has any idea.
Yeah.
Because unless it's something that sticks out to people, like an alien or a monster or something that clearly doesn't exist. A lot of the work I've done early in my career, especially, is set extensions. Like,
Hmm.
pull up one of our shots and see which buildings are CG and which are not.
Yeah.
99% of people would not be able to pick it out. And it's because, we have reference. I know what it looks like. The problem sometimes now is when you have something like, oh, here, make this alien. I'm like, what does that look like in real life? You know what I mean? And it's like, you kind of have to pick and choose, like, okay, I'm going to use this reptile as reference and this and that. And a lot of times I think the issue is, like, for example, early CG, some of it people thought was great. An example beaten to death is Jurassic Park. And I think
Yes.
this is just
Hold
my,
on. I have a slide. There we go. Keep going.
so I have my own opinions on that in terms of why that is. And, the answer may be different from other visual effects artists you speak to. But to me, it's because at the time, CG was still fairly early, that people gave a lot of the artists a lot of leeway to be like, okay, what do I need on set? I need the lighting to be this way. I need to measure this. I need to measure
Mhm.
that. I need to, if we do it here, it'll look best. Whereas some of the things I'm running into now is because CG as a tool has proven to be, in the case of Jurassic Park, so effective. We have some filmmakers who rely on it as a band-aid. Like,
Yeah.
hey, we'll just fix it in post. We'll just fix it in post. I'm sure you hear that all the time. And
Yeah.
for an artist like me, it's like, well, I don't have the lighting data. I don't have the lens data. I don't have anything. I'm basically trying to work with what I have here. And unfortunately, the reality is sometimes you get as good as you can get.
Hmm.
And an example I like to use is ET.
Okay.
So the CGET, to me, obviously does not look as good as a practical. And it's like,
Yeah.
why? Why doesn't it look as good? It is, it is one of the best CG teams in the world. And it's like, yeah, well, they can't travel back in time with a time machine and be
Hmm.
on set and take all the reference they need. Because, just like I said, just like any other tool, you need preparation, you need to be set up correctly. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, a lot of times, due to time restrictions, budget, or simply something like a shot changing, something
Yeah.
changes. It's like, well, now we don't have the same lighting information. We don't have the same, we got to work with what we have. And that means even in CG, yes, sometimes I'm eyeballing stuff because it's like, okay, well,
Hmm.
it looks like the sun's coming from this direction, and I think it kind of, so you got to do some kind of guesswork. And when it comes to things that are so intricate as CG characters and creatures, little mistakes show up more. So it's,
Yeah.
I can make the smallest little mistake, and next thing you know, on Reddit or whatever, everybody's blowing up like, "Oh my god, this sucks!" It is what it is, and you know, if they're
Yeah.
not paying me to work over the 8 hours that day, I'm going home. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think um I think where some of the problems kind of started was like, yes, Jurassic Park came out, Terminator 2 came out. They're huge. They introduced CGI to the world basically. I know it existed beforehand, but those were the big ones that kind of put it on the map. I think people forget, like, for those movies, especially Jurassic Park, like, they were kind of creating the technology with those movies, and like it took a while for like them to do it. Like Jurassic Park took a couple years to make, I think. Um, but then I guess other studios saw that and were like, "Oh, we're gonna have CGI," And then you know what? It'll look just like Jurassic Park. And then you got stuff like Reptile from the Mortal Kombat movie. And there were a lot of movies like this. Like, I don't know if you remember Species, that alien
Yeah.
movie? Yeah, great design by H.R. Giger and everything. It looks really cool. And then at the end, someone must have been like, hey, let's use CGI. It's new now, but they clearly didn't have the same team or time or budget or anything. And the end
Oh,
of
yeah.
Species is almost unwatchable. So I think that's where a lot of like negativity started because everyone wanted to start doing CGI, but they didn't have the same like people or tools or resources as Jurassic Park did. And people forget there's actually not a lot of CG in Jurassic Park, which I'm sure you know. I talked about on my show. Like, what I think there's only like a few minutes of CGI in that entire film. And some of it is a little dodgy by today's standards. Like, I love that movie. I'm immersed in it, so I let it slide. But if you really examine some of it doesn't hold up super well. But obviously the T-Rex stands out. My next question is, and we kind of touched on this, but how important is time when it comes to crafting a good effect?
It is super important. You know, it's
Yeah.
like the old saying, right? You can have it cheap, fast, or you can have quality. What is it? You can only have two of the three. I'm like butchering the saying, but
Yeah.
and that unfortunately is kind of the case now. I mean, look at how many movies now use CG,
Yeah.
and artists. It's not like we multiplied overnight, you know. So
Mm,
there's a finite amount of us right now. I mean, there's new artists coming in all the time, but
yeah.
a lot of us, I'm sure you've read all over. You know, some artists are getting stretched pretty thin. So it
Yeah,
gets to the
yeah,
point
that I
where
remember
it's
you
like,
touching on that too. When there was like a big article that came out.
mhm.
And I think I remember you said you didn't relate to it personally, but you know people who I think have been in that situation where there are.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate in my
Yeah.
career that I've not really had to do it like crazy overtime or anything like that. I mean, it
Yeah.
happens, but
Yeah.
it's like I said, it's actually one of those things where we get in trouble for doing overtime now. It's like, you know, I had a lead, a supervisor, you know, tell all of us, hey, make sure you're not working ghost hours, because what happens is some artists are so eager to get their shot done that even though they've technically clocked out, they'll keep working, you know,
Mhm.
because they don't want to, you know, especially junior artists, they don't want to look bad. They want to be like, oh no, I can do this, even though we try to tell them like, no, don't do that because it screws up
Yeah.
our estimates. We think it takes this long, but it's actually taking this long, and then everybody complains because nobody's getting paid enough. It's like,
Yeah.
I like I said, I can't speak for every artist, but me, when I was a senior or a lead anywhere, it's like I don't mind if you can't do it today or tomorrow within the allotted time. Tell me how long it takes you, and I can, you know, I can figure
Yeah.
this out. We can figure out each artist's strengths and weakness, and you know,
Yeah.
we'll make it work.
Yeah. So speaking of time, so I think a lot of movies, and I think it's mostly like the Marvel ones these days, I feel like they do a ton of last minute reshoots. And recently, everyone's favorite movie, Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, this is supposed
I
to be Thor, huh?
I enjoyed it.
Really?
I loved it. Yeah.
That's a different topic. But this is supposed to be a real fishing village. And like in the beginning of this scene, they're on location and everything. And then it cuts to these close-ups of Thor, and I'm like, he's clearly not in the fishing village. Like he doesn't look like he's there at all. His lighting doesn't match. And I'm guessing this was like a really late reshoot because they reshot like almost all of that movie. Like if you actually looked into it, there was a whole subplot with Zeus being a good guy, and they eliminated that. But yeah, I'm looking at this fishing village, and it actually like them in the God City, like they looked more organic there, like they were actually there. And then meanwhile, he's in this familiar location on Earth, and he doesn't look like he's there. And then I watched something like The Batman, which had the benefit of having a couple extra years because it got delayed. And this is all a digital city, and it's like almost flawless. Like they look like they're actually there. So that's why I wanted to know about time. Like this
Yeah.
feels like a rush
I can
job.
I can tell you from
Yeah.
experience working on certain types of shots like these,
Mhm.
sometimes that last like 5-10% is the hardest amount to
Yeah.
reach, you know, and we're in there in dailies and reviews, and they're like, okay, tweak this light like 5%, something's a
Mhm.
little off. And the closer you get, the harder it is to be like, something's off. It's just hard to see what it is, you
Yeah.
know? And Also, at times, I'm not saying that's the case for this shot. I'm not familiar with the shot and
Yeah.
how it was made, but sometimes it gets to a point where like, hey, we have to call this done. Like we need to move on, otherwise
Mm.
this movie's not going to come out. It is what it is.
Which has
And I've
always
also,
existed, by the way. In the history of visual effects, that's always existed.
yeah,
I think that's why
and
George Lucas went back and added so many things. Because like there were things that just annoyed him, and he's like, "Well, the movie has to come out. I'll put some orange underneath the speeder to cover up the wheels."
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's little things like that you adapt and you overcome.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, like I said, it's a problem that kind of feeds into itself sometimes with certain filmmakers going, "Oh, we'll just fix it in post." It's like,
Yeah.
well, it's always like I'm not a big proponent of all CG, all whatever practical CG, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's all cool.
Yeah.
And like who Guillermo del Toro is a perfect example who blends both seamlessly to me.
I
Beautiful
remember
work.
I didn't bring it in recently. I didn't bring it in my examples. I have other examples, but I remember Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, when they're in the troll market and there's like that weird that was the first time where I saw like where I noticed a really good blend of cuz CGI can mimic like a mouth movement really really good where practical effects just can't. Like
Mm.
like there's so much there's so many muscles in your face. Like the practical stuff, it would just be impossible to build, but CGI can do it. And I remember there was like this big troll thing, and I could tell it was like a suit, like a monster suit, but his mouth like looked perfect, like it was talking. I'm like, wait a minute, something's happening here. And like I said, the newer Star Wars movies, which are great, and I love them, Yoshi. They're totally perfect. They do that really really well because I remember Simon Pegg's character in Force Awakens. He's a big suit, and then they add it like they digitally smoothed over his mouth, and I thought that looked yeah, I thought that really looked really really good. And there is a nice blend. What I didn't like recently, did you see Prey, the new Predator
Um,
movie?
yeah, I liked it. I mean, for the budget, I think they did really good. And
Yeah, that
ironically,
yeah.
I thought some of the parts that I thought were CG were actually practical.
Yeah,
Like
there were
the Predator itself, I was like, wait, what? And it's
well
just
the
because they
Predator
use such a shiny material that it looked kind of.
yeah. The Predator was practical, but they did digitally enhance the face where I don't think they needed to. And that's what I wanted. Like, do you think people go overboard with like the little enhancements, like they overdo it?
Um, Sometimes,
Mm,
because there are times where I've worked on like indie films,
yeah,
and they might have like a horror scene or a sci-fi scene or something where they ask me like, "Hey, make some stuff." And a lot of times on indie productions, I get more freedom, more
yeah,
creative freedom. Usually, it's like, "Hey, we're just stoked that you're helping us, do whatever you want."
yeah,
And I've had times where I produce like X amount of footage, even though the scene is only like half that amount. And the idea is like, "Hey, you can re-edit this however you want." I wanted to give you stuff to play with.
yeah,
And I've seen times where they put all of it in just
yeah.
because they're like, "Oh my god, we got all this crazy footage," and I'm like, "Dude, it wasn't meant to be used like that." Now you have this long, drawn out sequence that nobody cares
Mm.
about, and
Yeah,
it is
specifically
what it is.
the Predator's face reveal in that movie. Because I saw the practical effects, it looked really cool, but you can tell like the mandibles are a little janky, which they usually were. But I could tell they like smoothed it over, but then they added like more muscles in his face. I'm like, okay, we're doing a little too much now. We're doing a little too much to it now. But the rest of Prey I likes. I thought the animals, but that was tied to budget, I think. But yeah, the next question I want to ask, does it help? And let me get my slide ready. And I think you probably already answered this, but I really want to go into it. Does it help to have like a practical effect on set as a visual reference to help with the special effects? And I have an example here. I don't know if you've ever heard of this film, The Dark Knight Rises. Have you ever heard of it? It's like the best Batman movie ever made. Have you ever hear of that?
Yeah, I heard of it.
Yeah,
That's,
I don't know if you
that's
know. I don't know if
yeah,
you know this, Yoshi, but I was in that movie. I don't bring it
yeah.
up a lot, but I was in that movie.
So
Um,
I've heard.
what was that?
So I've heard.
Yes, yes. I might have brought it up a couple times. But anyway, in the best Batman movie ever made, because I was in it. So they built this big flying thing and they put it on a crane. And they had it in all the visual like all the shots. They
Mm,
filmed like all these shots, but they even have an animatronic Batman in the cockpit, which is pretty cool. And then uh this is a completely digital model. Originally I thought they just deleted like the crane carrying it. But
yeah,
no, it's a completely digital model. But since it was in frame, they had like all the what I assume is they knew how to light it and everything because it was actually in the shot, and that's
Yeah,
why it came out pretty seamless. It does that help when there's actually a
a
practical
hundred
effect
percent.
on. Okay.
Yeah, you have reference. You know, you're like, okay, I know how this is supposed to look, and that's why we have the little, the little gray ball and the little chrome ball that we put in the scene. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason we use that is so that if I look at that chrome ball in camera, I can tell what is reflected behind the camera. So I know how to accurately light my scene. I can look at
Yeah.
that sphere and basically unwrap it and use it as a reflection map.
Mm-hmm.
With the gray ball, I use that to basically figure out lighting, like which direction is the lighting coming from and all that, as well as black levels. If you're familiar with that, like the darkest dark on that gray ball is going to be
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
darkest dark in the scene, blah, 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 blah.
No.
So with a shot like this, I can understand why you wouldn't delete the crane. It's probably more efficient to just replace the whole thing as opposed to going in and trying to like roto and
Yeah.
delete. It's like,
Because if
what, we have
you
the model, we might as well replace it.
Yeah, and if you actually go back and look at like the raw footage of it with the crane,
Mhm.
it is kind of like jerky. So they would have
Yeah,
had to. It makes sense to just completely change it. But yeah, they suspended this thing on wires. That's why one of the things I love about Christopher Nolan is he is one of those guys who will use every effect. He uses all of the
yeah,
effect. He uses a ton of CGI. People always like, yeah, he's always practical. I'm like, no, he uses a lot of CGI.
yeah.
It's
Like
just
the
he's
train sequence in
the what?
the
What's that?
train sequence in Inception.
Yeah,
Like
dude. There's a lot.
a lot of people were saying like, oh, I think even on the behind the scenes, they're like, oh, that was a practical set. I'm like, no, it wasn't. Like, no, it wasn't. Like,
Yeah.
it
But then
was partially.
he will do stuff like I didn't really like Tenet, but he did a thing like an old fashioned thing where they made like a set extension, but it was all like hand drawn in the back. Like they drew this long hallway. I haven't seen that in a movie in forever. But yeah, he uses every special effect, which I like. But yeah, having a reference I think helps because the first Jurassic World I was really critical of because they went a minus one puppet, they went all CGI. And a lot of the movie is mostly during the day, and it was really, really noticeable. But they fixed it. Well, they didn't fix it. They helped in the second film, the follow up. Oh well, actually, sorry, I skipped ahead. Here's the Star Wars reference. They put this BB-8 ball in this, and I'm sure they deleted this guy, and I'm sure they replaced BB-8. But BB-8 looks great in all three of those movies,
Oh
and I'm
yeah.
pretty sure it's because they basically had him on set,
Well,
so they
not
knew
only
what to
that,
do.
he's a what we call a hard surface model,
Yeah.
which, as far as CG goes, we pretty much, I would say, practically perfected that.
Mm-hmm.
Like robotics, mechanical things, ships,
Yeah.
the bat wing. We pretty much got that all figured out. Now it's down to characters and
Yeah.
organic stuff. But yeah, it's this is going off on a slight tangent, but that's why I had seen people commenting about She-Hulk
Yeah.
about like, oh, they complain about budget, but have this robot CG character leading this whole scene. And I'm like, yeah, because that is way more cost effective than
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the other shots. It's you have the robot character already built. It's just that you're just moving it around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there is a
No, I
difference
noticed
in
like
CG.
things like robots and stuff look way better when it's CGI. Like they look more they like look more real. Because it's hard to like mimic flesh and stuff. Like
Mhm.
your brain will notice that. But yeah, for Jurassic World, they built a life-size T-Rex and they had the actors interacting with it and then they painted over it with CGI. But because they had that actual animatronic, that T-Rex scene looks great in Fallen Kingdom. It looks better than anything in the first movie. So I'm like, okay, at least they like learned their lesson. They blended things together. So I'm glad that makes sense because I wish
Yeah.
more movies did that, had a practical thing on set just to make your guys' life easier, really. Um,
There's also
let me
the
see.
issue of different artists.
Yes,
You know
yeah.
what I
Can
mean?
you go into that? Because there are people who do different things. Like, what do you think? How many artists worked on this? Do you think?
It's hard to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's every team does things differently.
Hmm.
They have one art director, one supervisor might assign like five artists to the shot, like a compositor, a modeler, a lighter, or they might assign two general. I mean, you never really know.
Yeah.
Um, so it depends on the studio you're at, but that goes off my topic of some people are, oh, CG this, CG that. Whereas just like practical, there are different studios, different teams, and different artists.
Yeah.
Like you might watch one movie and say, wow, practical effects sucks. And then you watch another movie and go, what do you mean? Practical effects are amazing. It's like, well,
Yeah.
that's Phil Tippett. That's Stan Winston.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so with
Well, it's like
CG, go
before
ahead.
CG, there was stop motion. And there
Yes.
are movies like I love Terminator. Terminator 1 is my favorite Terminator. But the stop motion Terminator at the end is kind of janky, but that was tied to, budget and time. But then you watch RoboCop and the stop motion is way better in that movie.
Yeah,
It's
they
the
had
same effect. Yeah.
the go motion.
Yeah, they were using the go motion effect in that
Yeah,
one.
Phil Tippett.
Yeah. But like there were movies that had good stop motion and movies that had bad stop motion. I think we're in that era now. It's CGI, but people, for some reason, with just CGI, people just group it all as one thing. Like, oh, it all looks terrible. I'm like, not really. Not all of it looks terrible,
Well,
guys.
the terrible stuff stands out. Like I said, the
Yeah.
majority of the stuff that's done well, people do not know. And
Yeah.
there's also stuff that, due to how it takes place, are CG, but people don't know. Like there were some shots of these heads on spikes on The Walking Dead.
Okay.
They were done practically originally on
Yeah.
set. And so it was all, they filmed the behind the scenes stuff, and there was pictures for like Fangoria, all that stuff that they show.
Yeah.
And what people didn't realize was before it aired, it actually went through a VFX studio, and they're like, hey, these heads look kind of like mechanical. You know what I mean? Like they're moving like they're animatronics. So
Yeah.
we actually replaced the heads with CG heads. And
Okay.
no one knows. Like,
Yeah.
and all the stuff online is, oh wow, look at this amazing practical effects. And like this,
Yeah.
and the one that got me was when people showed clips of that and go, look, this is why practical effects are better than CG. And I'm like, oh my God, all right, whatever.
Yeah, I do think Twitter is a problem with that, where they cherry pick things and like there's a lot of misinformation there. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Like I loved Mad Max Fury Road. And everyone thinks like, oh yeah, it's all practical stuff, all practical. I'm like, no, I watched the behind the scenes for that movie. Like that big wide shot of the truck blowing up with all the cars around it. That truck was real. They really blew it up. All those cars around it are digital and added in post, as well as the sky in the background and everything. But yeah, like you said, I don't think people even realize how much of certain movies are CGI. It's easy when it's
seen Hawkeye?
easy. Huh?
Yeah, have you seen Hawkeye?
Yeah, I actually really liked Hawkeye. Yeah.
Yeah, so I worked on that in the Times Square. That was CG.
Yeah.
You know,
I didn't even notice.
Yeah,
I
the
probably
cars.
assumed, but yeah.
Yeah, all the cars going by because it's a pandemic. You can't. Who's going to be driving around? So
There were some awkward things I noticed during that whole pandemic era. Like I like Spider-Man No Way Home. But there was that one scene outside where there's like all the news are outside the school and they have the girl who played Betty Brant, like the blonde girl, and she's clearly not there. And they like digitally like put her face on someone else. That was real noticeable. I think we're getting to the end of that era though. I think all those movies, I think we're moving
I think
that
people
now.
are learning to work from home a little better because when the pandemic hit, I remember it was like a mad rush. Like the studios were like, okay, we're going to send you a computer. We got to figure out how to make this work. So there was a big learning curve there.
Yeah.
But there was also.
That's why I've been less critical to movies that were made like during like the height of that pandemic era. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let a lot of this slide.
Yeah. One movie I saw during the pandemic that I think I know what happened, unless I'm remembering it wrong. But it was a movie with Kevin Bacon, some like horror thriller where he's in like some time loop with a house or something like that. I don't know, but
oh yeah, I never saw that, but tell me.
There was a shot overhead of like a road, through the woods. It's a basic shot where they show that the character's traveling somewhere.
Yeah.
And I remember watching on my TV and thinking it looked weird, so I paused it. And me and my friends are like, I think the car's too big. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's 2 lanes wide. And I think in my head, it's because this was a pandemic movie and the artist that put the car in the scene was probably looking at this shot on like a computer monitor this big, And so the road was really tiny. I don't know. That's my guess. And it was such a quick shot that it was like nobody cares. Just get it done.
Yeah. That reminds me, years ago, I was rewatching Hercules: The Legendary Journeys. And Lucy Lawless was on an episode before Xena. She played a different character. And there's a scene where she's going up to the
Wait.
centaurs,
Oh, I was about to say, is it where she's with the centaur dude?
and she's way bigger than the centaurs are supposed to be bigger than her, but she's way bigger than the centaurs. They're like tiny. And it's like, oh man, someone screwed up, and they were like, this episode comes out Friday. Just get it done. Just get it
And
done.
it happens. I've had those nights here and there where it's
Yeah.
like, hey, Yoshi, we need you to work on this shot. I was like, okay, this airs tomorrow. Like, oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
get what you get.
Yeah. Speaking of movies that came out during that, the Snyder cut of Justice League, there was some really rough, like greens, like what's his face, Lex Luthor in the beginning being green screened onto the ship. Yeah, like I like
Yeah.
how they. I don't know if you remember, but you can see they kind of just like blur. He's supposed to be in a body of water. You can tell they just put like they like feathered him a little bit, and I'm like, ooh. I'm like, I just wouldn't have had that shot. That's really rough. There was some awkward green screening in the Snyder cut. But I mean, what else could they do? Because like the limitations they had.
Yeah.
But yes, now my next question is, sorry, I just saw someone pop into the thing. Hang out for a bit, buddy. How much how helpful is it when the script and the story is good and has you engaged? Because I have an example here. That we have 2 scenes with bats flying around. Now here's one of them. Batman Begins, right? Batman, when you're watching this movie, you're engaged in the story. You're like, oh no, Batman's lady friend is in trouble. The bad guy is poisoned the water. He needs to get to his car. He's called in these bats to help him. Like, you're in it. You're like, okay, I'm invested. So these bats are flying around. I don't even notice they're digital. I'm like so into the movie. I'm like, oh cool, there's bats flying around. And actually they did scan like a bunch of they like took dead bats and scanned them in the computer and then animated them. And I totally buy it, where if I'm watching this scene out of context, I'd be like, oh man, there's a bunch of digital bats flying around. But in the moment, I'm in it. But then you watch a movie like Morbius, where you're 2 hours into it and you're like, this is one of the worst films I've ever seen, and this is not a good still that I grabbed. And he has 1 million bats flying around him while he looks like a cartoon man. And then he forms the bat. I shit you not. Yoshi, did you see this movie?
I saw the movie. I don't remember most of it, to be honest.
He has the bats fly into a ball shape and then Hadoukens them at the other CGI vampire. And they're all over the place and there's CGI. And it's just like, I don't care what's going on. I'm now looking at these bats going, this is ridiculous. So how important is it to like the story to help enhance an effect? Like if you have a good scripted story, you will forgive certain things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of goes with a lot of things, right? Video game, but like when the story's, the more engaged in something you are, the more forgiving you are of other things. You know what I mean? Like, for example, I love the movie Gladiator.
Yeah.
Even though there's a lot of things that are, I mean, they're not really bad things, like little mistakes, like, oh, you can see the nitrogen tank when the carriage flips over, little things like that. But it doesn't bother me. I'm like, I'm okay. Shit happens. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, I can deal with that. But the problem is, and I'm guilty of it like anybody, when you don't like something, you start picking everything apart. You start like, well, this is bad and that's bad and this is bad.
I'm the opposite. When I love something, because of the show, I have to talk about these movies at length. So for my show, I picked apart so many movies that I love dearly, and I'll be like, yeah, but this part didn't make any goddamn sense, and I noticed this and I noticed that.
Like,
but yeah, you're right.
Edge of Tomorrow, like Live, Die, Repeat. Yeah.
I
love the movie, even though there was one part of it that I asked my friend about it, and he said I ruined the movie for him. But I was talking about I told him, hey, how he said he lost the power, like after he gave blood, he can't die and come back. And he goes, yeah. I'm like, how do you know? Like,
how would he know?
How do you know?
A lot of times that's something that got deleted, like from the script or scene, but somehow made it. I've noticed that.
It's something in the book that the story is different. I haven't read the book, but apparently there's a book. So
I've been exploring like work print versions of movies, like the work print cuts. I've been doing like breakdowns on those, and it's so cool to see like things that would have made the movie make more sense, but it was cut out, I guess, to save on time. So now these movies have plot holes where they originally did not have plot holes. And people are like, oh, that didn't make sense. I'm like, no, it actually was explained, but they cut it for time.
So speaking of, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
In Jurassic Park, are they or are they not a couple?
Dr. Grant and Ellie Sattler?
Hmm.
In the movie, they are. Because he does answer that at one point. It's very vague, but they definitely are. In the book,
So
they're not.
my understanding of it
Yeah.
is that originally in the movie they were a couple,
Mm.
but Spielberg decided to remove that element of the story.
Yeah.
But due to like certain lines and scenes being shot, they couldn't remove all lines.
Yeah.
So that's why
Yeah.
there's this weird dynamic with them.
Yeah. Because I remember, what was it? Before the new one came out, people were like, the age difference between those characters is kind of creepy. And it's like, well, because I guess when they were writing it, it was based off the book, and they're not a couple in the book. He's just like her superior, and that's it. And then they added the whole couple thing. But anyway. But you're
Wasn't
right.
she
You're
like
right.
20 something in that movie?
Yeah, she was like 23, I think. She was young. She was young.
She did not look 23 to me. She looked like totally like, I mean, not to say she looked old, but
Yeah.
it's probably like the costuming and the makeup and everything.
Yeah.
She looked like
Yeah.
a seasoned scientist, you know? I'm like, oh,
Yeah. But yeah, so I feel like sometimes there are just effects. There are things that just can't be pulled off. You just can't pull them off. And for a while, this musical was told that people said that this musical was unfilmable. And then they made it into a film and they proved everyone right. There's no way Cats was ever going to work with this design choice. So I love this movie, Yoshi. You really got to watch it. It's insane. It's insane. But now this was a choice that the filmmakers made. So when you go see like a play, right? Like if you went to the Cats musical, we all understand that these are humans and they are dressed up as caricatures of what cats are supposed to be. And we're not meant to believe that they're real cats, but we're accepting it for that play. The problem with the movie is it wanted to have humans representing cats, but then it tried to make them look too human and also have like the cat stuff is too realistic on a human body, and like my brain is just rejecting this right now. It can't decide if these are humans or cats, and it freaks me out. Do you think there's just certain things that will never look convincing no matter what? Like this.
Yeah, I think this is one of the things where, I mean, that guy doesn't look as bad as the others, I don't think, but I think it's one of those things where it's a design element.
Yeah.
You mean it's inherent to the design that it just doesn't work in this medium. You know, it's kind of like I think the issue that they dealt with early with transferring comic book characters to the big screen
Mm-hmm.
without first, I guess, call it priming your audience for that type of
Yeah.
visual. Like, you know, it just sometimes certain things just don't work in certain mediums, I guess. You know, and it is what it is.
But yeah, I was just looking at Cats. I'm like, there's no way. And by the way, all the set stuff in Cats looks great. Like all the digital sets and all that looks great. It's just the cats themselves that look horrifying. And I don't think there was any way to make them look pleasing on the eye at all. Let me see here. What is my list?
Yeah, the only thing I could think of is maybe if they gave him the lip, you know, the split cat lip or something, go like push it further.
I will say there are some cats that are actually wearing clothes, and those are a little like Idris Elba is a little bit more tolerable until the end where he takes off his jacket, then he's a naked cat man, and you're like, okay, I don't know what this is. This is freaking me out. Okay, so I need to ask, like, again, I'm not a CGI hater or anything, but I'm starting to notice in like a lot of big budget movies, like something's going on with visual effects, and I don't know what it is. And like a recent example, I know you didn't see the movie yet, but all these Ant-Mans together, like I'm looking at this right now and I'm like, I can't, like I'm having trouble suspending my disbelief. It just, I know they're not all there. And it doesn't look real to me. Meanwhile, there's a Capital One commercial with Taylor Swift, and I believe all those Taylor Swifts are there. So I don't understand what's happening with movies lately with certain visual effects. And
with that specific one, I think it's honestly the lighting in the Capital One is more forgiving to duplicating things. It's a very global illumination. It's like everything's pretty evenly lit. Whereas on the Ant-Man one, there's clearly like shadows on like screen left of his face, yet he's not casting shadow on the person to his left.
Yeah.
It's little things. I mean, I could be wrong, but this is just based on this one. I haven't seen the movie. This is basing on this one frame that I'm looking at, you know. So
yeah. And trust me, I wouldn't have cherry picked this if I didn't see the movie but I did see the movie myself and it doesn't look much better. Like I wouldn't, because I know there are people who cherry pick stuff online. It's like, no, but I actually saw that movie and it didn't look that bad.
And I'm gonna be honest, there are times too where things are actually real and they just don't look real. So I
Yeah.
mean, for all I know, it might be, and I've come across this myself, where they might have a scene like this, and they go, "Well, why aren't they casting shadows on each other?" And then they show the footage, and there's actually like body doubles in the scene. Like, yeah, they're actually not casting shadows on each other just because of the
Okay.
way. I mean, I'm not saying that's the case, but
Yeah.
there's times where even in real life, I'm driving and I see like smoke coming out of a chimney in a building. I'm like, that looks fake. Why does it look like there's an outline on it? You know, I don't know. There's just weird things like that. So
Yeah.
it's a tough one. Like,
Now,
wow, is that the dude? Okay.
okay, that's MODOK. I'm actually fine with MODOK. I talked about that in the last live episode. People are really shitting on this. I'm like, this actually doesn't bother me. Again, it's weird that he's bald if you know the character, but if you know the continuity of the movie, it makes sense. What really bothered me was Thor's CG helmet on his face in Thor Love and Thunder. And I remember seeing it in the trailer. I'm like, well, it's just a trailer. Maybe it'll look better in the movie. And then I saw the movie. I'm like, nope, looks just like the one in the trailer. What do you think? What could possibly be the explanation for this? Because I can't figure this out.
Um, it's hard for me to see. Like I said, I haven't seen the movie in a while, but
Yeah.
I mean, nothing about it really sticks out to me as significantly like bad.
Yeah.
Like it looks okay. I think it's just a poor. I think that the color choice doesn't lend itself very well. That like blue green part.
Mm.
But
I also think
Or-
he just wasn't supposed to have a helmet in that scene, and then they added it later on. I think that might actually be one of the things too.
Yeah, that's probably it. Like I don't know. Like I don't want to just like shit on some artist's work. You know, I have no idea.
No, you don't have to do that. I wanted to know like what would the like why wouldn't they just use a helmet? That's the weird thing, unless it was something they added in later on.
Yeah, like I said, it could be reshoot issues, continuity issues. It could be something like, you know, it like the reverse of the Starbucks coffee cup in Game of Thrones. It's like, oh crap, he was supposed to have his helmet on here. He's busy now. We can't bring him back. It's like, well, the movie also comes out next month. Well, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, my issue is he should just
no movie.
Yeah. My issue is Thor should just always have a helmet. That's what really bothers me about those movies. I'm like, why isn't he wearing his goddamn helmet?
Because he's pretty.
Yeah, he is very pretty. I mean, he can be pretty with the helmet on. He doesn't have to wear it all the time, but I mean, when he's in battle, like, what was it? That second Thor movie, he's got a big cut over his head. I remember being in the theater. I'm like, hey, you know what would have prevented that? Goddamn helmet. Anyway, those are the end of my questions. Let's get into some super chats. And we'll talk to some of these lovely people who are waiting. And I see Prison Mike there. He's there. He's excited. He's giving me the finger right now. Anyway, first super chat here. The French Canadian Wolfman. MODOK was great. Best CGI since Python 2000. Have you seen the movie Python from the year 2000?
A long time ago, obviously. It's probably in 2000 is when I last saw it.
You know what? I think that might have been the last time I saw it too. Oh, let me see here.
But you know, with MODOK, it's still a human face, and that's still one of those things that's the hardest to get right. And especially when you
where's the whole uncanny valley and whatnot. But
yeah, and especially now that you have it in this weird, like deformed shape and dimensions. It's a tough one. I don't know how, even if you got it looking physically really real, like would it still look fake just because of what it is? You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way anyone would ever accept that, which is fine because his character is also comedic. So I kind of I'll forgive special effects and like comment. Like I saw Cocaine Bear recently. And like at no point did I think the bear was actually there, but I was having such a fun time, and it was a comedy. And the fact that it didn't look super real actually added to the comedy to it. So that's why, I don't know, people are really hung up on MODOK. They need to relax.
I mean, I saw, like I said, I haven't seen the movie, but I saw an image of him with the mask down.
Yeah.
I thought that looked cool. And honestly, when I first saw that image, I'm like, that's a clever way of doing it. I'll go with that, you know, but then they open his face and it's hilarious, you know, and I'm like, oh, it's hilarious, but I think it works for the movie. You know, it's supposed to be funny,
you know what is funny? the first images they showed of MODOK was with the robot face, and everyone was like, why don't they just have a big head? It's okay to look silly. Why did they do this robot face? And then the movie came out, they're like, this looks bad. This face looks bad. It's like, well, what did you guys want? You complained about it.
Oh, there's no winning. There's no winning.
There's no winning. There's never any winning. There's never
like,
any winning.
Even with Thor, I remember one
Yeah.
specific shot that they released
Yeah.
in the trailer that looked exactly like the comics, you know, with that giant
Yeah.
creature.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, look, whoever worked on those scenes, they nailed it. Like, I thought that was a beautiful shot right out of the comics. That's like 1-to-1. And I'm like, all those people that complain now about things not looking like the comics should have nothing to complain about. Then all of a sudden I saw comments like, look how lazy these artists are. They just copy the comics. And I'm like, okay, I whatever. I don't know anymore.
Oh, I thought of another example. Practical effects. Like let's pretend practical effects. Gremlins. You've seen Gremlins, right?
Yes. Who
Great
hasn't?
little. Yes. Great practical effects with the puppets and everything. Okay, then go watch the movie Hobgoblins, which also uses puppets, and tell me they're just as good. Movie Hobgoblins is really bad. It's really bad. It is a really bad Gremlins ripoff, but people are like, practical's always better. I'm like, really? Compare Gremlins to Hobgoblins, and then just take that same mentality and do it for CGI. There's good and bad. It's not exactly the effect itself. It's just how well it's being pulled off. Hobgoblins was so good, Yoshi. It was a Mystery Science Theater episode, just to give you an idea. Next up, from K Burns, $10. What do you think of 3D? Especially, could I get your opinion on conversions? I just saw the Titanic one. Actually, going back a little bit, you said you entered the industry around 2010. That's when like 3D was starting to get really pushed. So what do you think of 3D?
It was never really for me, honestly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's cool as a novelty, personally. Like Avatar, you gotta watch it in 3D. Why not? But I don't need to see every movie in 3D. 3D conversions. I didn't do any conversions. I have a friend that did. Maybe I'll recommend him, and you can have him on your show, and he can talk all about that. But he actually worked on Titanic. But it's to me, it's a novelty. I think the last movie I saw in 3D was the first Ant-Man. Okay. And it was specifically because another artist recommended the entire studio watch it in 3D. And we're like, wait, why specifically 3D? He goes, when you shrink and grow with Ant-Man, the sense of scale in 3D is awesome. And sure enough, it totally was. In the bathtub, when he's like, shh, I'm like, whoa! Yeah. Like,
because I think I saw the first one in 3D, and that's one where like 3D actually, it works with or without 3D, but it worked really well. But again, the scale, that's what I think is missing from the newest one. But next we have.
Maybe you see it in 3D.
maybe I'll see it. I did not see it in 3D. I'll give you that.
Is it in 3D? Is it available in 3D? I don't even know.
It might be in 3D. It's weird the new Scream movie's apparently in 3D. And I was like, really? I don't think we need a Scream in 3D, but okay. Next up, we have the French-Canadian Wolfman again. The best practical effect of all time is Lou Ferrigno fighting a bear in Hercules. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, Yoshi.
Wait, there's a lot of Hercules. Wait, which one?
There was a Lou Ferrigno Hercules.
I don't think I saw the Lou Ferrigno one.
I think he also fought a bear in The Incredible Hulk. He fights a bear, and then it turns into like a stuffed bear that he throws into the sky, and then it explodes, and it becomes the bear constellation. It's a great film.
Oh, that's awesome. I gotta see it just for that.
He's joking. The bear looks terrible. K Burns again, this time for $5. Sorry, I meant as far as it's affecting CG. Like, I saw Gemini Man in 4K 120. I assume that means frames. And young Will Smith looked amazing when he was moving. Do you think 3D affects CG?
Honestly, I think it makes it more forgiving.
Okay.
Because you have an extra layer of depth that you can add to your like perception. And the example I can give is, for example, VR games. That when you watch on the screen, they don't look that good, but when you're actually in there, you're like, it's more forgiving. You're like, oh, okay, this is cool, you know, because it's 3D. I think it's kind of the same thing. If I had to guess, where the flaws are not as apparent because you're more immersed because it's 3D.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're playing Drunken Bar Fight, which looks shitty on purpose, but I play that. I probably played that VR game more than any other VR
Oh
game.
my god, I love that game. I think
That game's so good, and I love that I'm like, you know what? They probably could have made this look better, but I'm glad they made it look as shitty as it does because it makes it
I'm
so
not gonna
much
lie,
more fun.
I was a little excited. I think the guy that created it or the team, or whatever,
Yeah.
just followed me on Twitter, and I was like,
Oh,
"Whoa,
that's awesome,
that's awesome!"
dude! I
Or
love
Instagram,
that
one
game.
of those. I don't know.
I fired up my VR recently and I didn't realize they updated it. Now you could be in like an airport and throwing things
What?
around on an airplane. I was like, what? No. I'm like, I had a bad flight a while back. I wish I could have taken my rage out on this. So next we have the French Canadian Wolfman. Again, CGI is bound to age, so it should be used only when necessary and balanced with good practical effects. What do you agree with that?
I think CGI, like practical, is just a tool, and like every tool,
Yeah.
tools age and tools grow and tools advance. Even practical
Mm.
effects now, we've advanced in terms of material technology. You know, we have better
Mhm.
rubbers that look more like skin and blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
yeah.
And it's the same thing with CG. It's it goes back to my earlier point of a lot of filmmakers relying on it as a band-aid, like, oh, we'll just do it in CG. It's like, well, if you
Mm.
prep it, it's much better, just like practical. It's
Yeah.
like, you can't just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, you know? You got to look at, okay, and I think Terminator is a good example. It's like, what can we do in CG? And at the
Yeah.
time, it was like, well, we can do like liquid metal pretty convincingly. Like,
Mhm.
all right, so liquid metal it is, you know?
And I
Or
think yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry. No, continue.
I was going to bring up the example of like early CG. People said, "Oh, this looks really plasticky. Like everything looks
Mhm.
like plastic." Well, let's make a movie called Toy Soldiers, and we'll make them all plastic toy. You know, like not to say that that looked amazing, but
Yeah.
like anything, look at what you have and work within your limitations. You know, whatever
Yeah.
that may be.
And I think the reason a lot of people say CGI doesn't age well is like we're kind of the first generation that has experienced this new effect form. So I think we're just more aware of it now. Like when we were younger, practical effects, they kind of like Sam Winston kind of got it down. Like he
Yeah,
kind of figured it out. So we were born into a world with really great practical effects and then CGI came along. But yeah, if you go back, like there's older movies that have really bad practical effects. I mean, I love Godzilla. I've seen a lot of Godzilla movies where I'm like, there's no part of me that believes that this is a giant monster, not a man in the suit. Like
I think
there are good
I'm
and bad
getting to
effects.
the age
Yeah.
where, or maybe it's because I work in visual effects, but I
Mhm.
think I'm getting to the age where the early CG has a charm to it to me, kind of
Yeah.
like people feel that way about stop motion. Like, well, obviously it's not realistic because it's jerky, but there's a charm to it. And I kind of feel that
Mhm.
way about early CG, especially like TV show stuff like Star Trek when they have
Yeah.
CG characters and stuff. I'm like, oh, see, there's like a weird charm to it for me. Like there's a
Yeah.
nostalgia to it. You know, like
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
the early stuff when they were using Lightwave. I'm not a big fan of the program, but you know, whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, I go back and I watched some like old shows recently with like early CGI, and I was like, oof. I'm like, I kind of like it. I kind of like it. It made me a little nostalgic for that time because it was new. It was new and it was exciting. Um,
Yeah, like Reptile from Mortal Kombat.
like Reptile. Now when I rewatch Mortal Kombat, I'm always like, I would have kept them camouflaged the whole time. K Burns for $10. If you love Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park CG, the documentary Jurassic Punk covers one of the key guys who made the CG. It gets really sad, but a ton of good behind the scenes footage. I have not seen that documentary. Are you aware of that one?
I am not.
No, I'm gonna check that out
I
then.
if you're into visual effects documentaries for everyone, I highly recommend one called Life After Pi.
Life at
Uh,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I haven't seen it, but I remember when that whole pie thing happened, like when they got the effect, like when they got the Oscar and then the place shut down and people were like, wait,
yeah.
what?
Mhm.
Let's see here. The French Canadian Wolfman, they're just giving us a ton of money tonight. 90s movies like Godzilla 98 and Independence Day were good at balancing CGI and practical effects. Actually, the CGI in Independence Day, that was mostly miniatures and models, if I remember correctly. But
They use
yeah,
a
the
lot of
gods,
miniatures.
huh?
They use a lot of miniatures in that, from my understanding.
Yeah, even like the
But
ships, I think were still like, the Star Wars where they had different models and stuff. But there was CGI in it.
yeah,
The
but I think
Godzilla 9
it was also because they were still early in it, and it was like, oh, let's not try to go nuts with we don't know if we can do it, you know. Whereas now it's
Yeah,
like, well, they can do everything. Just fix it in post.
I will say Godzilla 98. Well, they actually had a bunch of practical stuff for Godzilla 98 and they like didn't use any of it. They used very little of the practical Godzilla that they made. I watched Godzilla 98 in 4K like a year or two ago. So that's one of those things where like the higher quality transfer of the movie, the more flawed that movie. I'm looking at Godzilla, I'm like, oh, Godzilla looks straight up pixelated in a few scenes. I'm like, I wish I didn't watch this in 4K.
Oh, trust me, I watched Toy Story 1 in 4K, and you can see
Oh,
some of the textures. You can see the actual pixels,
yeah,
like from the texture itself. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. You know, early 3D.
yeah. Oh, the French Canadian Wolfman again. The Adventures of Sinbad TV series from the 90s is a great combination of horrible CGI and crappy practical effects.
Rings a bell. I remember that.
I didn't see that one. What I watched recently was the live action Conan the Barbarian show. It was not that good, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Mickey from Seinfeld's in it. I was like, oh my God, I love that actor. George Hernandez says, how often do companies change their mind? What's going to happen? And you've been working on it for a while. Have you ever been in the middle of like a shot or like an effect, and then they're like, we changed our mind, do something else?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
That's
Not
like,
for visual effects, but I've definitely been in that situation where it's like, hey, you know that thing you've been working on? We're not doing that anymore. Stop it. I'm like,
I think that's a universal gripe across all industries, right? No matter what somebody's job is, there's always like somebody that goes, man, we were working on this, and then they changed it, and now we got to start all over with something else. Like, hey, that's life, you know? And then sometimes because of that, you get bad effects because you had less time than you originally started with, and you're doing something completely different. So,
yeah, I think famously the movie, The Thing, 2011, The Thing prequel, where they had the practical effects that were made to be enhanced with CGI, and then one producer was like, "This looks too old school. Make it all CGI," and you could tell it like looked like it wasn't finished yet. Although that's
the one that gives CG a bad rep, even though it was like, dude, they had like no time at all to come in and try to redo everything.
Yeah,
not because they wanted to.
And I felt bad for Studio 80i because they made them with the intention of being enhanced digitally. Like they made them with that in mind, and instead they were like, no, we're not going to enhance it. We're going to replace all of it with very, very little time. Although I still stand by that movie would have been good even with the practical effects because the script was so bad. But anyway, here we go. Yeah, it's not good. Michael Hopner for $1.99. What do you guys think about AI in the industry? Has AI crept into your industry yet?
Yes. It's been very divided, I'll tell you that. I know a lot of the 2D artists I know are not happy about it. Me being a 3D artist, it hasn't really affected me in that way yet. Although I do 2D as well. I see it as just another tool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To do all the little stuff that I don't want to do. You know, stuff that I already know I can do is just get the ball rolling, and then I'll go from there. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I think they're a few years away from getting fingers right, so I think you're safe. That's the thing with AI. Like they'll have like a woman who looks like almost real. Then you look at her fingers and they're like diagonal, and she's got like 10 of them. Like AI has a real big problem with fingers right now. I don't know why that is.
And plus, at the start of it, it's a human inputting the information as to what they want. You know what I mean? And I get it.
People, I think people think it's a scary computer that's sentient. I'm like, not really.
It's a tool. It's not really making things from scratch. It's basically kit bashing from stuff it finds online.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not to say that it might not get there someday. It very well could, you know, just replace me altogether. But for the time being, you know, it is what it is. It's a new tool, whether we like it or not, it's coming. And I personally, if I had to make a prediction, that I would guess it would become in the future more of a thing where maybe artists license out their styles as opposed to themselves. You know what I mean? Like,
it's reminding me, actually, we talked about Phil Tippett earlier. He's one that kind of like when CG he was realizing the stuff he was doing was about to become obsolete, and he kind of got in with the CG guys early on. And he kind of finally survived from there. Whereas other people are like, nah, it's like, no, you gotta get with the times, buddy. As much as it sucks, you gotta get with the times. Here we go. He didn't say anything, AJ Wizzle, for €9.99. But he is the guy who photoshopped my face onto MODOK, which I use for the thumbnail. So I'm gonna give him. He did a follow. he did a follow-up. He paid another €9 to ask the question. The Matrix is a movie that showed a conspiracy through effects. Tony, as you are the Jesse Ventura of movie reviews, do you think the moon landing was fake? No, I don't think the moon landing was fake.
I don't either. I have my own thoughts on that, but I actually, the thing I told my friend is I have a friend who believes it was faked, and I'm like, so his thing is, oh, they faked it so they could beat the Russians, and I'm like, well, wouldn't the people watching it the closest be the Russians? And if anything were to be fraud, wouldn't they be the first to blow it wide open? Like, yo,
no,
losers! Like,
my friend said the same thing on the show. They have all these countries have so much to benefit by proving the moon landing was fake, but it's just like they haven't yet. So it's like, all right, well, I'm pretty sure it was real. It's expensive. I'm sure that's why we haven't gone back that many times. But let's see here. We have Hyper Fox for $5. Nothing will ever top Malbolgia from Spawn. You know it's true.
It's all about the lawnmower man.
You know, it's funny because Spawn, they had Banned from the Ranch was this production company, this like effects warehouse. They got their name because they were banned from Skywalker Ranch because they were walking around smoking cigars. But they were visual effects guys, and they did like work. I think some of them did work on Jurassic Park. But you watch the behind the scenes of Martin Sheen, and he's like, they got the guys from Jurassic Park working on this movie. I'm like, oh, he didn't understand. I don't think he understands, because you see the movie, you're like, oh, the CGI is not as good as Jurassic Park. But there were a lot of guys, because it was so new, people back then were like, oh yeah, it'll look just like that movie. See, Malbolgia's mouth didn't move, Yoshi, because they wanted to give the idea that he was talking telepathically. But then his mouth does move for one scene, so I don't really know what the hell happened. I love that movie. Okay, looks like we've reached the end of Super Chats. I'm going to talk to some of the people here. I'm going to ask you guys, you can ask a question that hasn't been asked yet, and then talk about some CGI you saw recently that you thought was good. Let's start it with Bearded Outlaw. Hello, Bearded Outlaw.
Hello.
Do you have a question for Mr. Yoshi Vu?
Don't really have a question, but I was thinking of like CGI just in general.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like some of the better CGI like I've seen, not recently, but over the years. I was thinking like the last Apes movies.
Yeah, the Planet of the Apes movies are like solid.
Yeah, like especially like those last two, like where you spend like 20, 30 minutes with seems like just apes, and you forget that they're CGI for the most part.
Yeah, well, it goes back to that statement about how important is time, right? I guess when you're working on apes for 3 movies, you tend to learn a thing or two.
Right.
You know what's funny? The tiny ape, the baby Caesar, I think they used that model for that 2015 Fantastic Four movie. They like copy and paste that model in there, and it didn't look like. I'm like, that's basically the same ape, but again, it wasn't lit the right way. I'm like,
I think Weta, that team. I think they did the gorilla for Rampage, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Rampage was good. The effects of Rampage were solid. They were totally solid.
Which makes sense because I guess whatever production company was like, yo, we need a CG gorilla. It's like, well, go to the apes people. Obviously, they got it figured out.
Well, Weta had it figured out in 2005 with King Kong. They're like, well, yeah, these guys kind of know what's going on.
Yeah, they've been doing it well. They did King Kong, Planet of the Apes. They got the fur thing all figured out. Beautiful way.
Anyway, Bearded Outlaw, thank you so much for stopping by. And thank you for being a $10 patron. Get a goddamn microphone. If I hear your beard rub on that thing one more time. All right, goodbye. Okay, we have the one end Dennis. Hello, Dennis.
Hey, Tony. Hey, Yoshi. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, do you have a question for Yoshi, or you have an example of good CGI you've seen recently?
A good example I think I saw of like a movie that you would never really imagine had CGI in it. I watched The Wolf of Wall Street, and I think the company who worked on it, Brainstorm Digital. I think that they did a highlight video, and you just see how much they actually added and changed. And it's on YouTube. It's a pretty popular video, and my God, you never would have imagined in such a simple movie with such strong acting that they color corrected. They changed so much around them. It's unbelievable.
Set extensions and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, one where you said that you try to choose out which buildings are actually CG. To quote you, in when looking at your shots, it was amazing that some of the buildings just completely weren't there. They just filmed in like a doorway or something like that.
Yeah, and but those don't stand out to people because they're just buildings and doors, but they don't require any less work. Somebody still has to go in and make it, digitally paint it, all that good stuff. So another good example of CG that people aren't aware of, at least from my understanding, is Something About Mary, because apparently Ben Stiller is allergic to dogs.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So
it was a
CG dog and a puppet dog at times.
Yeah, I remember that. God, that movie's so good.
Yeah, but nobody called out the bad CG, because nobody noticed. It's like
I didn't notice something recently. The movie Fall. In the movie Fall, the girl cursed, but they wanted to cut it to PG-13. So they completely scanned her mouth and face and everything, and they had her say fucking, and they switched it to frigging, and I didn't even notice it until I saw the behind the scenes thing. I'm like, you could have easily just cut to a girl's reaction and dubbed it, but wow, they went the extra mile and completely changed the face. And I didn't notice it. And I've been looking at faces recently because there's a lot of digital airbrushing going on in movies. And the biggest example I've seen recently is Vin Diesel in the new Fast and Furious trailer. I'm like, why is he looks so like unhumanly smooth? What is going on?
I will say, I have a unique experience with Fast and Furious because I saw the first 3, I think, Fast and Furious, Too Fast, and Tokyo Drift.
Yeah.
And then I saw Fast 9. I didn't see anything in the middle.
Dude, I did something similar. I saw the first 2, and then I went to see Hobbs and Shaw. So I saw the spin-off of the newer ones that I have not seen. I was like, wait, there's nanoviruses? What happened to this franchise?
That's kind of where I was at. Because I'm watching this movie, and I didn't realize that the kid from Tokyo Drift wasn't in any of the other movies. It was just Tokyo Drift and then 9. So when he showed up, I'm like, oh, that's cool. They've had all these characters this whole time. Like, no, they didn't. And then, so the last thing I remember is Vin Diesel, like running across a lawn away from gunfire because someone's doing a drive-by, and it's like very normal. And then I see this movie, and he's pulling chains from the ceiling down, and like his bunkers coming down around him, and he's taking on like 50 guys. I'm like, okay, did I miss something? Like in the other movie, did he take super soldier serums or something? Like they straight up became superheroes.
That's how I felt. Dennis, thank you for stopping by, and thanks for being a $10 patron. Okay, guys, he's on the lam. He's free. He recently got out of prison. We have Prison Mike here, who has changed his name to Awesome, and it says, okay, hello, Prison Mike. How are you?
Yo, what's up? What's up, Yoshi?
Hey.
Are you enjoying being out of prison?
I don't have any questions. I said I wasn't expected to be on here. I don't have any questions because I know nothing about movies.
Okay.
But I guess my question would be, what was probably your best movie you ever worked on? Your favorite?
What's the best movie you ever worked on? Or favorite?
Probably The Rise of Skywalker. Because, you can't beat being told that you're going to work on the Death Star. Like there's no going back from that. When I got that call and they're like, "Hey, we want you to come build the Death Star."
Yeah, the Death Star is the giant ball that blows up planets in Star Wars.
Yeah, I know this. Thank you.
I have a toaster. I have a toaster of it. I will say, like, again, I have criticisms of that movie, but the Death Star looked great. The Death Star in the water. Again, the Star Wars, like, as much as I don't like the new Star Wars, I can't say anything bad about the effect. They're like flawless. I'm like, that looks beautiful.
Did you see all the little stormtrooper helmets and stuff in the Death Star ruins? Like you had pieces of stormtrooper armor. Yeah, I mean, I guess Disney wasn't cool with some of the helmets having skulls in them.
Oh, they got rid of the skulls?
Kidding.
Well, Prison Mike, thank you for being a $10 patron.
Of course.
And stay out of prison, Prison Mike.
You too, Tony. Thanks, Yoshi.
Be awesome.
Okay, goodbye. Oh, man. Prison really changes, man. Okay, next up. And he's wearing a beautiful shirt that's no longer available, but will probably be available again soon. We have Ryan Powell, aka Ren on the Shave. Hello.
Hey, how's it going? Can you see me? Can you hear me?
I can see you. I can hear you great.
Okay. Yeah. When it comes to CGI, using Jurassic Park as the example, old versus new, I want to talk about filmmaking techniques for a second, because
Yeah.
in Jurassic World, every single shot, if I may use a visual aid, is the exact
Yes,
same
please.
wide shot where all you see is the dinosaur head, tail, the whole body moving. Whereas the original Jurassic Park trilogy, a lot of it's just like close-ups of just the face or just the claws or just the tail. So you get a lot more personality out of the raptors. Whereas the new movies, every single shot, it's the exact same. You don't have that artistic filmmaking where we have a model, we have it snarling, we have a close-up of his face, and it looks cool. We don't have that anymore with CGI. It just kind of seems like it seems all the samey.
Yeah, I think they do show him a little too much. I think that was the problem with the first Jurassic World specifically. But I think the 2 follow-ups, they addressed that. They actually did more close-ups and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that boils down to the filmmakers, their personal preference and how they want to lay out their shots. Because, as far as CG as an artist, it doesn't matter to me how close they want to get. Just let me know and I'll do what needs to be done. Although I will say the first Jurassic World, I was very impressed by the close-up shot of the raptors when they're locked in that machine. When they had the muzzle on, something like that. You know what I'm talking about? Like I haven't seen it, but
I don't know.
I actually thought it was practical, and it's not. It's all CG, and I'm like, wow, good job.
No,
even though that shot could have been done practical because they're all muzzled. Like who cares? You could stick a puppet in there.
Yeah, but I think it was. I was able to notice, but I will say when the movie switched to nighttime, finally they looked great. Like Blue looked really great when it was finally nighttime. I think there was something weird with all the daytime shots in that first one.
I will say there are times where the general misconception is that CG at night because it's easier. For me personally, it's harder depending on the shot. Of course, like for example, I think an example a lot of people use was Godzilla. They go, "Oh, it's so dark and raining because they want to hide it." I'm like, no, that actually, especially with all that rain, that is not easy. Like that is such a nightmare, to try to figure all this out, like with the light from the buildings, and now you got rain coming down. You got to make sure the rain can be read as rain, even though the droplets should technically be super tiny compared to this giant thing. And it's like, it's a whole nightmare with that. But going back to your responses, I if I had to guess, it might be some filmmakers are like, well, we spent all this money on this, making this raptor. We want to show the whole thing, like that's sometimes what happens. Not saying that's the case here, but it all boils down to the filmmaker and their personal preferences.
Yeah. Ryan, you have an example of good CGI you've seen recently in a movie or TV show?
I don't know. The most recent new thing I've seen is Cocaine Bear, so I don't know if that counts for good.
There was I again, you guys should see Cocaine Bear. Cocaine Bear was a hell of a time. Anyway, Ryan, thank you for being on the show. Finally, we got you on the show, buddy. And thank you for being a $10 patron. Ryan's got some really good books, which I actually have here real quick. The Origin of Power Penguin, and I have your comic books here too. So check those out.
Shout out.
Yeah. So I'll let you go. We have one more super chat. We have 2 more. We have last minute for super chats. Get those in. We'll read these 2. Okay, here we go. The moon landing wasn't fake. Remember, that's how we have the Kylax and destroy all monsters. So this guy is proving the moon landing was real by referencing a Godzilla movie. Okay. Well, thank you, Sage D, for that.
I was today years old when I found that out.
Could you imagine? Like, guys, the moon's not fake. I watched this Godzilla movie and they were on the moon.
No, I've had a friend call me before on the phone, like when I was at work once, because he saw some documentary on TV, and you're already gonna know which one as soon as I say this. He calls me, I pick up the phone, he goes, "Dude, I just saw this documentary. Did you know that aliens built the pyramids?" I'm like, all right, I'm gonna hang up now. Like,
dude, that's like an old theory. But yes, I was actually that guy for Halloween one year, the aliens guy.
Yeah, I met him at a convention.
Oh, you got to meet him? Oh, that's
awesome.
I
have a picture with him. And the funny thing was, can I get a picture with you? And he goes, sure, but you got to do this. And I'm like, okay.
The one, it was years back. I was filming a short film, and we were filming in a bar, and it was just like on the TV, but it was like muted. And like I woke up that morning and my hair was like all crazy. And like someone looked at the TV and they're like, Tony, you look like the ancient aliens guy. So then I dressed up like him for Halloween and I went around like this to people with like a sign that said aliens. I have a picture of me with an R2D2 doing this.
That's nice.
Kiru Pilot 379 says, "Hey Tony, kind of late to ask this, but did you or Johanna catch the official Godzilla vs. Gigan Rex short film, which supposedly set in the Heisei series of films? I have not personally seen that yet. Me and Johanna are planning on bringing back our Godzilla podcast, and that is one of the things I want to cover when we do the Godzilla podcast. But yes, I'm very well aware of it. I just haven't sat down and watched it yet." And then the same person said, "Would you ever review Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or Pan's Labyrinth?" Pan's Labyrinth is another good example of CGI. Sorry, Yoshi, are you still there? You froze. Okay, you're back.
Yeah.
Pan's Labyrinth is another good blend of CGI and practical, getting back to Guillermo del Toro.
Doug Jones.
Yeah. Yeah,
He
both
always
his
does,
characters.
I always look at him, he always does hand stuff.
Yeah. But I remember the behind the scenes because he has those weird legs that you can't do with the human. And then I saw he had like the green, he had like the green socks on his legs. And then they just deleted that afterwards. I'm like, wow, that's really, really cool. And Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I would love to talk about the movie. I have a really funny theater experience with that. I'll just say here, I love that movie, but as we were leaving the theater, some old guy tripped and like his face just hit the wall, and me and my dad, we just burst. Like we felt so bad because we weren't expecting it, and we just bursted out laughing. He was fine.
What is the answer to everything? All right.
42.
Okay, so I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But I think the reason that's the answer I think the what do you call it? The binary code for 42 is like 101010 or something, which is turn it on and off. So it's like that's the answer, turn it on and off. Somebody told me that. I don't know for sure. So,
I never read the book, so maybe that's a thing.
It sounds believable.
Okay, a lot of Godzilla questions. Guam Tech for $2 says, "How did you like Shin Godzilla?" I love Shin Godzilla. That was the first all digital Godzilla in a Toho film. I don't know if you've seen that one. Yeah, there were some shots where I'm like, oh, well, that's because I remember they built like an actual puppet and whatnot. But again, they used an on-camera source to make this wonderful digital Godzilla. You wouldn't expect Toho to do.
I did like King of the Monsters.
King of the Monsters was fun, but now like the Shin Godzilla, like I thought it was a man in the suit or something for some shots, but no, it was all digital. It looks really, really good. King of the Monsters was fun. Godzilla vs. Kong was fun. Okay, that looks like it's it. Yoshi.
Yes, sir.
Where can we, I mean, I linked in the description, but where can we find you and where can we follow you?
Oh, I'm on Instagram at Yoshi Vu Art and on Twitter at Vu Yoshi. So, yeah, I'm not really a big popular guy on social media, but feel free to,
But yeah, you've worked on so many stuff, and I used to work on Cinemassacre, and I know you've done work for them before in the past. Do you want to tell people which ones you worked on?
Let's see. I worked on the AVGN movie back in the day.
Yeah.
I made a Humvee, and then I worked on a few episodes. I think the Vegas episode, the Fear and Loathing Vegas episode, and then I did some Cinemassacre like Monster Madness. So did some like globe stuff.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that Vegas episode was fun. We filmed that during like COVID, so like
it was so hard. James
was on the yeah, dude, like the scenes where I'm in the shot with him, we filmed them all separately. So he's like 12 feet away directing me, and I gotta pretend like he's right next to me. It was a whole thing. That was the last AVGN I worked on. But yeah,
so you probably ruined.
Yeah, that's the one that I ruined apparently. I ruined all of them apparently. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm glad we had this discussion. Because again, I see people who act like snobs pretending like all CG is bad, and that's always bothered me. As someone who grew up in the DVD era and would watch behind the scenes and saw like how digital effects have evolved to now, I wanted someone who worked in the industry to have this honest discussion. I think we did a pretty good job. In the comments, let us know. Did we change your mind on CGI? Do you have a better appreciation for it now? Yes, and I guess check out Invincible. What is it? Season 2 coming out?
Yep.
Check it out. I can't wait to watch that. I'm gonna start Invincible just for you, Yoshi.
Binge it tonight, man. Just binge it tonight. You won't regret it.
Binge it tonight. But yeah, that's it for me, and we will talk to you all later. Just checking one more thing. Okay. All right, everyone. See you later. Goodbye.